It's December 20th, 1968, at 9:45 p.m., a cold winter night in Vallejo, California, and the residents of Blue Rock Springs Park are in for a horrific shock. The sounds of laughter and carolers fill the crisp air, a stark contrast to the chaos that's about to unfold. A couple, Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday, are parked in their car, on a romantic date, when suddenly a killer strikes. The sound of a gunshot rings out, followed by the scream of a teenager. The park is plunged into darkness, and the world will never be the same. As the darkness recedes, the scene becomes clear: a mangled car, a lifeless body, and a trail of blood that will lead investigators on a decades-long hunt for a killer. The trees, once a picturesque backdrop for a romantic evening, now stand sentinel over a macabre crime scene. The sound of sirens echoes through the park, growing louder with each passing moment, a harbinger of the chaos that's to come. The air is heavy with the scent of fear and death. A sense of dread settles over the witnesses who fled the scene, their memories forever etched in their minds. Betty Lou Jensen, a 16-year-old high school student, lies lifeless in the driver's seat, her body riddled with bullets. David Faraday, her 17-year-old boyfriend, is gravely injured but clinging to life. The killer, a shadowy figure, remains at large, leaving behind a trail of cryptic clues and a sense of confusion. The world is starting to realize that this is no ordinary crime, but the beginning of a spree that will leave a trail of terror in its wake. The killer's motives are unclear, but the impact is certain: fear and uncertainty grip the nation. Eyewitnesses describe the sound of a gunshot, followed by a voice shouting, "You bastards," as a car speeds away from the scene. The witnesses are stunned, unable to comprehend the horror they've just witnessed. Some report seeing a figure in a dark-colored car, speeding away from the scene. Others describe a person in a black jacket and hat, fleeing the area on foot. The details are sketchy, but one thing is clear: the night of December 20th, 1968, will forever be etched in the memories of those who witnessed it. Before we go further, hit subscribe and the bell. We post new cases every single day. We're the true crime detectives, exploring some of the darkest corners of human history. From infamous serial killers to unsolved mysteries, our team digs deep into the facts, uncovering new evidence and new theories. Stay with us for the latest updates, new investigations, and exclusive interviews. And if you have any tips or information, please contact us directly. Let me take you back to the very beginning of this story, to the early days of 1960s California, where the hippie movement was in full swing, and the social norms were changing rapidly. This was a time of great upheaval, when young people were pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable. In the midst of this cultural revolution, a killer emerged, preying on the innocent and leaving a trail of death and destruction in their wake. The Zodiac Killer, as they would come to be known, would commit at least 5 murders, sending a wave of terror through Northern California. But who was the Zodiac Killer, and what drove them to commit such heinous crimes? Was it a twisted desire for fame, a need for control, or something more sinister? As we delve into the story of the Zodiac Killer, we'll explore the lives of the victims, the investigations, and the theories that have surrounded this case for decades. From the cryptic letters and codes sent by the killer to the infamous cryptograms, we'll examine every detail, every clue, and every piece of evidence. And we'll ask the question that has haunted investigators for years: who was the Zodiac Killer? Our case today revolves around Arthur Lee Allen, a 35-year-old man living in Vallejo, California. Allen was a former mechanic with a troubled past and a penchant for the dark side. He lived a relatively ordinary life with his mother, Emma, and a son from a previous relationship. Allen's daily routine consisted of working at a local gas station and spending time at the library, where he often got caught reading forbidden texts like child pornography. Despite his questionable behavior, many of his acquaintances described Allen as friendly and approachable. Allen's job at the gas station required him to interact with customers, making him a familiar face in the community. He also spent a lot of time with his mother, who seemed to have a strange attachment to him. Allen's personality was a mix of meek and menacing, which often confused those who knew him. Despite his dark habits, Allen had a way of making people like him, as if he had a charm that couldn't be broken. Those who got close to him reported that he was intelligent and charismatic. Despite his questionable behavior, Arthur Lee Allen had a way of making people root for him. He was a single father trying to make ends meet, and many people saw him as a tragic figure. Allen had a certain relatability to him that made people question his guilt. His rough exterior and kind heart often made people doubt his involvement in the Zodiac Killer's crimes. His sympathetic nature often put people in a position where they didn't want to believe he was capable of murder. Allen's relationships were a mystery, as he didn't have many close friends or family members. However, it's known that he had a few acquaintances who trusted him implicitly. These people would later claim that Allen didn't seem capable of committing such heinous crimes. Allen's relationships were built on a foundation of trust and deception, making it hard to discern truth from fiction. As we delve deeper into Arthur Lee Allen's case, one thing becomes clear: the line between good and evil is often blurred, and sometimes, the people you trust the most are the ones who can hurt you the most. The months leading up to the Zodiac Killer's attacks were marked by a series of strange incidents, including a shootout between Allen and two police officers. It was as if Allen was testing the limits of the law, pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable. As the Zodiac Killer's attacks intensified, Allen's behavior became increasingly erratic, and many began to wonder if he was involved. The tension was building, and it seemed like only a matter of time before the truth came to light. But what was going on in Arthur Lee Allen's life during this time that could have driven him to commit such atrocities? The first warning signs that something was wrong with Arthur Lee Allen came in the form of a series of letters and cryptic messages he sent to the police and the press. These messages were laced with a dark sense of humor and a twisted sense of self-importance. As the Zodiac Killer's attacks continued, the letters became more frequent and more detailed, giving the police a glimpse into the killer's twisted mind. It was as if Allen was taunting the police, daring them to catch him. But who noticed the warning signs, and who ignored them? It's a question that has haunted the people of Vallejo for decades. Did anyone see the writing on the wall, or did the Zodiac Killer's crimes catch everyone off guard? The answer may surprise you. As the investigation into the Zodiac Killer's crimes continues, one thing becomes clear: Arthur Lee Allen was not who he seemed to be. But what was he hiding, and how far would he go to keep his secret safe? It was a crisp evening on December 20, 1968, at approximately 9:45 p.m., in Vallejo, California. The moon was full, casting a silvery glow over the streets of this quiet suburban neighborhood. A light mist hung in the air, making the temperature feel more like 50 degrees than the actual 55. The residents of this street were tucked away in their homes, none of them aware of the horror that was about to unfold. The night was peaceful, but it wouldn't last. The events leading up to the crime were shrouded in mystery, but investigators later pieced together the events that set the stage for this tragedy. David Faraday, 17, and Betty Lou Jensen, 16, had been driving around all evening, enjoying the romantic atmosphere of the winter night. They pulled into a lover's lane area near the Blue Rock Springs Park, which was a popular spot for teenagers. Unbeknownst to them, they were not alone in this deserted spot. Faraday and Jensen had parked in a spot overlooking a curve in the road. At 9:45 p.m., a black car emerged from the darkness and blocked the road in front of Faraday's vehicle. A shot rang out, and Faraday suffered a fatal wound to the neck and chest. Another shot struck Betty Lou Jensen in the neck. Both Faraday and Jensen were just 17 and 16 years old, respectively. Faraday's vehicle was left on the road, abandoned, and the two teens were left for dead. The killer then fled the scene, leaving no signs of evidence behind. The most shocking detail of this crime is the chilling letter that was sent to the Vallejo Times-Herald just 4 days after the murder. In it, the killer claimed responsibility for the crime and even sent a cryptic message to the media, claiming he was the Zodiac Killer. The letter, which was signed with a symbol resembling a cross with a circle, would become one of the many eerie communications the killer would send to the media throughout his killing spree. It was the first and only sighting of the killer's symbol at the scene of one of his crimes. This single detail will haunt investigators for years to come as they try to catch the killer. As the news of the double homicide spread throughout the small town of Vallejo, panic set in among the residents. The police department was quickly flooded with calls from concerned citizens, all of whom were eager to know if their loved ones were safe. The first person to discover what had happened was a group of teenagers who witnessed the crime from a distance. They immediately called the police, but not before a few of them caught a glimpse of the killer's car. The police department scrambled to respond to the crime scene, but the killer was long gone. Comment below, what do you think really happened here? Did the killer target these two teens randomly, or was there something more sinister at play? Theories are plentiful, but as we delve deeper into the case, the complexity of the situation becomes clear. It's a game of cat and mouse between the killer and the authorities, and the stakes are higher than ever. As the full scale of the situation becomes clear, the Vallejo Police Department is faced with a daunting task. They have to not only catch the killer but also understand his motives and identify him. The case is high profile, with the media already hounding the police for answers. The department's top investigators are assigned to the case, and a massive investigation is underway. We are just days away from the start of one of the most infamous investigations in American history. The Zodiac Killer case will captivate the nation and leave a lasting impact on true crime enthusiasts. But one question remains: who is the Zodiac Killer, and what drives him to commit such heinous crimes? The answers will have to wait, as we continue our journey into the twisted mind of this serial killer. Here we are in Chapter 2 of our true crime series, The Zodiac Killer. In Chapter 1, we explored the early days of the Zodiac Killer's terror, leaving police baffled and a community on high alert. As the bodies piled up, the police force in Northern California scrambled to respond to these gruesome crimes. Initially, the police treated the case as a series of unrelated murders, but as the letters from the killer began to arrive, it became clear that they were dealing with a sophisticated and calculating individual. The Zodiac Killer's cryptic messages would go on to become one of the defining characteristics of the case. In August of 1969, a key piece of evidence changed the course of the investigation. The infamous Z340 cipher arrived in the mail, a 340-character puzzle that the Zodiac Killer claimed would reveal his identity. This cipher proved to be a game-changer, as experts from the National Security Agency and the FBI were called in to try and crack the code. Despite numerous attempts, the code remains unsolved to this day. The Z340 cipher remains one of the most baffling pieces of evidence in the entire case. As the investigation progressed, several main suspects emerged, each with their own unique set of circumstances and potential motives. One of the earliest suspects was Arthur Lee Allen, a convicted child molester with a history of violent behavior. Another suspect, Richard Gaikowski, was a former editor at the San Francisco Chronicle who had a peculiar fascination with the Zodiac Killer's antics. These two suspects would go on to be some of the most prominent in the case, but neither would ultimately be charged or convicted. Despite the wealth of evidence against them, both Allen and Gaikowski managed to evade justice. However, the investigation also took a major detour in the form of a suspect named Ross Sullivan. In August of 1969, Sullivan had been arrested and questioned in connection with the Zodiac Killer, but as the investigation progressed,